let me go ahead and just start by introducing myself. So I know many of you that are on here on the webinar tonight. I know you personally, so I know you know who I am. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Laura Foster. I am the creator of my 40-day online sugar detox program, and I've been a chiropractor in practice for over 20 years now. And I also, very incidentally, am a mom of two very hungry teenage boys who I'm sure would love to have more sugar in their diet. So I have been creating lifestyle programs for years in my practice and in the community. And it wasn't until last year where I decided to get, I don't know what's the term, really maybe granular about the whole thing. I could tell that there was a real portion of my practice members who were not getting the results that they wanted with respect to how they were feeling with their nutrition and with their diet. They had all sorts of symptoms and so on that I knew we could improve upon if we could shift some of the core concepts that they were really creating their food from or making their food choices from that were, at least in my opinion and research wise, were a bit erroneous. In other words, I could help them with that. So that's how this all started. I decided to go ahead and put together a program. It excited me. When I ran the first one, we had maybe about 50 families and 50 individuals that took part in it and had tremendous results, and it's inspired me. So the journey continues forth, and here we are putting on yet another online sugar detox program. I will take the time to explain what that is at the end of tonight's webinar. It's not our focus for tonight specifically, but let me just say a couple things right off the bat. This will just help you make sure that you have a good experience on a webinar. If you haven't done this before, and I know that sometimes people notice that I start pixelating or they can't hear me, I start freezing. If that's the case, just make sure that you have all of your other browser windows closed and that one of your teenage sons is not sitting in his bedroom streaming a whole bunch of video content that's making it difficult for you to capture the video. Having said that, if you are on this and it's frustrating because you're just not getting a clear picture or you're not hearing the audio, don't worry. Just get right off of the webinar, go make yourself a cup of tea, and you will get a copy of this recording in your email box later this evening, okay? So don't stress about it. You'll still get all the information and it'll come out perfectly clear on your end. On the side of the webinar, you will see that you can ask questions. Please do. I will, in all likelihood, not get to all of the questions tonight, but I will certainly post them on our public Facebook page, which if you haven't been to, I think it's a good resource to go towards. It is 40-day online sugar detox on Facebook, or you can certainly email me on my website, drlaurafoster.com. All right? Okay, we're ready? So let's get started. Okay, so this topic is huge. I tried to narrow it down to 5 ways to avoid hidden sugar. And more importantly, or as important even, is how do we also curb the cravings that so many of us get? So I wanted to start with the first and most obvious thing is, why do we crave sugar? So a lot of us just think that we like sugar. I get that. But the reality is that we actually have a chemical addiction to sugar. Without even recognizing it, the vast majority of us are consuming much more sugar than we recognize. And as a result, we are literally creating a chemical and neurologic addiction to sugar. Sugar, when we consume it, lights up the brain in ways that but flood our system deliciously with a whole pile of dopamine and opioids. And that feeling gives us a high. We seek that. It lights up the brain reward cascade centers of our brain, and it makes us jonesy for more. You probably know this. You've probably experienced it before. When you have a little bit of sugar, you want a little bit more sugar, and so it goes. And over time, unfortunately, what happens is a little doesn't go a long ways. The more that you eat sugar, the more that you require more sugar to create that high that your body craves and wants to experience, and you need to do it more frequently. That's why we talk about sugar being addictive. Not only is sugar addictive, it is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And when they do MRIs of the brain and they look at a person who consumes sugar and they look at a person who is consuming cocaine, it is lighting up the exact brain reward areas of the brain. So it's it's significant. And I think that it's really important to not only know where sugar is coming from your diet, but have a strategy about how you can reduce sugar from your system so that you do it in a way that is comfortable, that doesn't leave you hanging and really having issues with cravings. The first time that I ran the detox, I did not have enough steps in place to really help people with the few people that definitely had issues with the cravings. And so this time I am armed and ready. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I really don't think I need to tell you about how much of a problem sugar is. This generation, our generation, and I fear for the generation behind us, is experiencing more obesity, more heart disease, more cancer, more anxiety, depression. We are aging at an unprecedented rate. For the first time ever, our generation, or maybe my generation, is not going to live as long as the generation before me for various reasons. We have adrenal fatigue, huge amount of infertility, high blood pressure, acne, hyperactivity for sure. What else? Headaches, you name it. The biggest thing that I think, that people notice on a day-to-day level is that their cortisol levels are going really high. And that is the stress hormone that governs how we manage ourselves and how much resiliency we have in our system. When cortisol is high, it suppresses so many of our active functions and leaves us feeling depleted. That is what sugar is capable of doing in the body. So there are so many reasons why we need to drop the sugar content down. So we know this is an issue. This is an issue of epic proportions when it comes to adults. It is even worse when it comes to children. Adults on average are taking anywhere between 80 and 120 pounds of sugar a year. Teenage boys are having 41 teaspoons of sugar a day. It is massive. And somewhere in this whole process, we're going to talk about how many grams of sugar should you be having a day? Because I'm pretty sure if you took a teaspoon and you put 41 teaspoons in a bowl and you recognized that yourself or maybe one of your teenage children or your husband or whatnot was consuming that, you would be horrified. So let's get down to how do we determine, how do we figure out how much sugar's in things, and how do we get really good at strategizing our way to low sugar? So let's go through. Number one, it's going to start with awareness. One of the biggest things is we need to be able to recognize where sugar's coming from in our diet. And I know this sounds elementary to a lot of people, but I really like to start here, which is let's talk about a nutrition facts label. Every product that you will see on a shelf in North America is going to have a nutrition facts label. It is on the back and it looks like this. Okay, I know you can't read backwards, so I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is super imperative to understand. So look, I have one of these. I also know you can't read this very well, but you can go ahead and pick up one on your own from any label or any package in Canada or the United States, and you will see this. So a couple things just to bring your attention to real quickly. The serving size is particularly important. I just pulled this off the internet. The serving size for this particular one is 3/4 of a cup. It'll always list things like fat and cholesterol and sodium and all those kinds of things. The thing I want you to focus on is the amount of sugar. In this case, for whatever this product is, there are 18 grams of sugar in 3/4 of a cup. What you need to be aware of is not only that it has 18 grams, is you need to be aware of roughly how much you're eating. Because if you're having 1.5 cups of whatever this product is, then you need to double the serving size. As a result, you need to double the number of grams of sugar, which will take you to 36 grams of sugar. So for 3/4 of a cup, it's 18 grams. If you had 1.5 cups, you'd be having 36 grams of sugar. So when I say to you, that's 36 grams of sugar, people go, right, 36 grams of sugar. When I say, how many teaspoons is that? That's where it starts to become more difficult for us to have a really good sense of. So take your pen out, because what you want to write down is 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. Okay? So 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you doubled this portion size, because you ate 1.5 cups and you had 36 grams of sugar, you would divide it by 4 and you would get 9. This would mean that whatever this product was 9 teaspoons of sugar. So is that good? Is that bad? Well, 9 teaspoons isn't a lot, but how much are we looking for? If the average teenager in Canada, and I fear that's probably more in the States, is having 41 teaspoons of sugar, the number that they should be having, another thing to write down, is 20 grams. Children and teenagers should be having roughly 20 grams of sugar a day maximum. And adults need to be having less than 40 grams of sugar a day. And they are topping the charts way more of that. So, that's fine. But if you were to eat whatever this is, you are already up to 36 grams. And that's why there's an issue with sugar. Now, along with the nutrition fact label, there's also, of course, an ingredient list on the back of every item. And it looks like this. I'm sure it's not this big for you. The only thing I want to draw your attention to on this is that when you have an ingredient label, of course, you can read everything that's in it. And you want to, of course, be picking foods that have the, most whole foods for one. You need to be able to understand what each item is, and hopefully you can pronounce each one and you recognize that it grows from the ground. But more importantly, for the purpose of sugar, when you're looking at it, of course, you should be able to see here. But the thing that is closest to the top is the highest concentration. So in other words, in this case, this word right here says corn flour. The second one says sugar. The third one says peanut butter. This just means that in this item, the most abundant item in here is corn flour. The second most abundant ingredient is sugar, and so on. So that's something that helps you just navigate as you go through a grocery store. When you are adopting a low-fat sugar lifestyle, you're going to be picking up stuff often. You're going to be taking a look at it. So the biggest confusion, or one of the biggest confusions I get, is, should I be counting carbohydrates? Should I be counting sugars? Should I be counting fat? Make it simple for yourself. I swear to you, if you just focus on counting and cutting the sugars, you will get the results that you're looking for. By automatically cutting the sugars down and being really aware of how much sugar you're consuming, you're automatically going to be dropping your carbohydrate level down. When you drop sugar down in your diet, you will just find you start eating cleaner anyways. Chances are, and especially as we talk a little bit more about this, you're going to be bringing healthier fats into your diet. So the fat content isn't quite going to be as important either. Okay, so focus on your sugars as opposed to everything else, and you will get the results. So what's the number again? Tell me again how many grams everyone needs. Yeah, you need to know this. So you're looking as an adult to consume 40 grams of sugar or less a day. And as a child, you're looking for your children to have 20 grams of sugar or less a day. So how hard is that? Well, the other part of understanding sugar is understanding what is sugar. So everybody knows the word sugar, but do they also know the other words that come out? Sugars often end in the suffix OSE, glucose, mannose, galactose, fructose, you name it, though those are sugar compounds. But there's also many, many other names, like about 80 of them. There are many forms of sugar. It can be everything from, maple syrup to honey to, let me see here. I have like a giant list. So certainly when you take a sugar detox, but you can Google this, I think it's incredibly important to recognize what are the different names for sugar, so that when you're quickly looking at an item, you go, wow, not only can you look at the nutrition fact label and say, there's a massive amount of sugar in here, you can also look on the ingredient label and recognize that there's many, many forms of it. Okay, so that's an important part as well. Okay, look at this, I took notes. Isn't this awesome? Okay, so for those people who are increasing their level of awareness so that they can actively and strategically decrease their level of sugar, being aware of the greatest sources of sugar is incredibly important. The number one greatest source are beverages. Most people are drinking in their sugar unknowingly, extremely unknowingly. If I said to you, is there a lot of sugar in a can of Coke? People would, of course, overwhelmingly say, yeah. In fact, I think there's 39 grams, which is roughly 10 teaspoons. So if you were a child and you had a can of Coke, that's like double what you should ever be consuming in a day, let alone all the other meals and things that you're going to be consuming. So this whole journey to low sugar involves knowing really what beverages are the best things for you to consume and what aren't. So I have a little show and tell because it's fun. So I know that if I held up the soft drink or the soda, you would say that's a bad choice. That has a lot of sugar in it. But I also want to bring your attention to some things that I got at my local health food store, which, by the way, is an awesome store. But just because something's in a health food store doesn't mean that it's meeting the requirements for a low sugar lifestyle. So I picked up this organic unsweetened apple juice. It is 100% apple juice. It's fantastic in that it's non-GMO verified, which I love. And it has no added sugar. The only ingredient in this apple juice is unsweetened apple juice. This tiny, because this actually isn't really very big, this tiny little thing of apple juice has 30 grams of sugar. So it wouldn't be unusual to give a child almost this much in a small glass for their breakfast, and that would be 20 grams of sugar right there. And we're going to talk about this because this would be a form of fructose, which has other implications in the body that we're going to get to. So here's your 30 grams, which means, what's that? 7 times 4, just 7.5 teaspoons of sugar. So then I went to this Happy Planet. Oh, yummy, an extreme green fruit smoothie. Lots of great ingredients in here. In other words, there's kelp and there's spirulina and there's chlorella. I love all that kind of stuff. But the problem is the base is a lot of high sugar, high fructose juices. Although they're unsweetened, there is still, let me see here, 36 grams of sugar in this tiny little thing. And when you think you're making a good choice and you slug this back at your lunch, the problem is that you are elevating your blood sugar levels, which are going to turn into crashing your blood sugar levels right afterwards, because this is so high in sugar, and it's going to lead you jonesing for more, and this is going to feed that level of neurologic addiction that we see with sugar. This is fun. Let's continue on. Coconut water, pure coconut water, also found at my health food store. This one here has 14 grams of sugar for this. And because it's called water and we know that coconuts are great for us, our automatic assumption is that this would be something really great to put in a smoothie. So on some level, I get it. But the thing is that this is quite high in sugar. So when you put this in your smoothie and you put maybe a cup of fruit in your smoothie and maybe you put some yogurt in your smoothie, you are going to get 60, 70 grams of sugar in a smoothie. Here you are, you're starting your day, you want to make a great choice, and you've totally blown your sugar content right out of the water before you've even left your breakfast table. Something to be aware of. Last one in the beverage department, and then we'll get to some menu items, is kombucha. Kombucha is one of my favorite things. It's fantastic. It is a fermented drink. It is great for gut flora, the probiotics, the healthy bacteria that colonize in your gut and your bowels. This is one of my favorite brands. It is GT's Raw Organic Kombucha. This one is Ginger Aid. I just want you to bring attention to the fact that they're not all the same. So this one has very little sugar. And this is actually delicious, by the way. And up here, we can get this in Costco. 4 grams of sugar. So this entire thing has 1 teaspoon of sugar. Its little friend over here, by the same company, Synergy is the same company. Also raw and organic. This is Mystic Mango. I know you can guess this already. This has 20 grams of sugar. So this one has 5 times more sugar. So that is significant. So same company, 2 different items. So never make the assumption when you're going through the grocery store, through the food market, that, you know, kombucha in general is going to be low sugar. That's not the case. Okay? All right, let me tell you this one. For you Canadian viewers, we're going to go over a little Tim Hortons. A Tim Hortons large double-double, which for you American and European viewers means double milk, double sugar in your coffee, 30 grams of sugar. The medium has 18 grams. And I don't want to harp so much on Starbucks, except for the fact that they use very genetically modified ingredients, and their drinks, other than a black coffee, is through the roof. So you can enjoy your, I don't know, grande frappuccino, which I don't know if you've seen how many teenagers are in a Starbucks at lunchtime, but it is massive. Kids are gulping these by the bucket loads. 68 grams, which is 17 teaspoons, and that's a grande. How many people do you see walk out with that mother of a one? Yes, double cream, Elise. Double is double sugar, double cream. And they have those giant venti ones. But even just the grande frappuccinos have 68 grams. Caramel apple spice, 88 grams of sugar in a venti. Take a look at those black tea lemonades and all of those. They are 60, 70, 80 grams of sugar. The venti white chocolate mocha, 18 teaspoons of sugar, 74 grams. I mean, it is no wonder that, not only, let's just put weight aside. The amount of sugar in our diet is what is significantly contributing to our issues of heart disease, certainly suppressing our immune system, massive amounts, which of course is going to lead its way to imbalances, diseases, and diseases like cancer, hypertension, hyperactivity, for goodness sakes. It is accelerating our aging processes. It is burning out our adrenal glands. This is a massive, massive problem. And it is creating digestive disturbances. And 70% of our immune system is in our gut. And when we are consuming these things over and over, it is really wreaking havoc with our gut lining. And that's why so many people are having issues with digestion, not to mention bloating and all those kinds of things. Okay? Number one, beverages. Number two, greatest source of where we get hidden sugars are condiments and sauces. The beauty of this is if you're aware and you start cutting a lot of the condiments and the sauces or making some healthy substitutions, you are going to dramatically decrease the amount of sugar in your diet and not really notice the difference. Some of the biggest culprits are things like ketchup, barbecue sauce, and for goodness sakes, pasta sauce, like really bad. So Neil Brothers, this is just a classic barbecue sauce. 2 tablespoons has 13 grams of sugar. So 2 tablespoons has 3 teaspoons of sugar in it. So basically really what you're consuming when you're consuming barbecue sauce is probably honey or high fructose corn syrup, which we get back into the fructose, which we'll talk about. This is a major one. So not using barbecue sauce and changing some of your rubs and marinades will make a big difference in how much you're consuming. There is a reason that tomatoes are, well, they're technically a fruit, but we say it's the most eaten vegetable on the planet. It's because we consume massive amounts of ketchup. And I see people just load this up on their plate. And this is sugar. This is pure sugar. 1 tablespoon of this has 1 teaspoon of sugar. So when you like ketchup, what you're really saying is you like sugar. This one will probably surprise you, and you can look at any pasta sauce on the market over and over again. There is massive amounts of sugar in it. This is no different. This entire jar, which easily you would put this on a dinner, has 30 grams of sugar in it. So go back to how many should you be having? If you're having 40 grams in a day, if you're a child, then you should be having 20 grams in a day. Making choices like this are huge. So what you can do instead, of course, is you can buy jars of stewed tomatoes and you can start to make your own sauces and not necessarily buy these. Or you can really, you can really strategize and you can find some that are a lot lower, but the majority are super high. And this one is organic, it's dairy-free, it's gluten-free. It has, great ingredients, everything you can pronounce, but they're putting massive amounts of sugar. So why do they put so much sugar in this? So, well, maybe I'll wait till that. We'll talk about that. Okay, so those are the things that you want to look for. You want to look at your sweet relishes. You want to look at all of those sauces that you put on things, probably quite unconsciously and not recognizing. So that's a really great strategy when it comes to decreasing. Next thing, fruit. So fruit is something that I really want to bring people's attention to for 2 very good reasons. Fruit is extremely high in sugar, especially some fruit, and not all fruit is equal. So just being aware of what fruits are extremely high in sugars and what fruits are a lot lower in sugars will certainly help you navigate that and will help decrease your overall load. It doesn't mean you'll never have high sugar fruit, but you just need to put it in the context of an entire day. If you are having a day where you're going to be eating out, or you're going to be doing something where you want to have a little bit more sugar, then pulling back on things like this is really easy. For example, 1 cup of raspberries has 4 grams of sugar, and yet 1 cup of blueberries has 15 grams of sugar. Mango, grapes, pineapple, they're much, much higher. So sticking to the raspberries and the strawberries and the blackberries, right there alone, you're going to be significantly decreasing the amount of sugar that you're having. The other part of it is fruit in the form of dried fruit is a giant crazy one. If you have a cup of medjool dates, which, especially for people who are more health oriented, who, are doing baking and they're trying to stay in the natural health realm, they're using dates a lot. I know I used to use dates a lot, but a cup of dates, which would easily go into some raw energy balls that I used to make, have almost 100 grams of sugar in it, and it's in the form of fructose. So that's really something to be aware of, but also just dried fruit in general. 1 cup of it is 58 grams. So when you are making, say, trail mix, which is a great thing to have, you just want to make sure that you're not loading it up with massive amounts of dried fruit, thinking that you're getting those healthy fruits in your diet. You don't need them. They're not adding to your health, and they are continuing on this level of high sugar that most of us have. So unsweetened apple juice, a cup of it, 42 grams. Orange juice, 39 grams. Grape juice, 60 grams. These are not the sweetened ones. These are the unsweetened ones. Again, just being aware. Now, so many of us don't think twice about giving our kids unlimited amount of fruit. And you think, well, it's natural. Here's the thing. We are consuming far more fruit than was ever consumed 20 and 30 years ago. So many people are having multiple sources of fruit in a day, and especially eating them on their own, because in some ways we digest fruit better when it's on its own. But the issue with it is, it spikes our blood sugar. When we have a piece of fruit, of course, it has fiber in it, which is fantastic. So it does in some ways slow down how quickly all of that happens. But when you have fruit juice, it is like a huge insurgence of sugar straight into your bloodstream, and it is going to have that blood sugar surge that so many of us experience, and more importantly, what we experience afterwards, which is the fall. Now, here's what we need to be aware of when we're talking about fruit. Fruit is full of fructose. Fructose is a form of sugar that is metabolized in the body differently than any other form of sugar. It is different than glucose, sucrose, mannose, you name it. Fructose is not metabolized in normal ways. It is metabolized in the liver in quantities that we never used to consume. The biggest source of fructose actually comes from high fructose corn syrup, which, oh my goodness, in North America is rampant in our diet, of course, mostly in packaged foods, I should say. High fructose corn syrup gives us a huge dose of that fructose, but also it's contributing when we have the juices and when we have the pieces of fruit, especially when we have a lot of it. The reason why metabolizing fructose in our liver is different is when we have too much of it, we start to overload our level of fructose in the body. The liver cannot keep up, and it starts depositing it as fat. It often deposits it around the organ systems and around the liver. It has significantly increased the level of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It is also one of the things that is significantly contributing to heart disease, atherosclerosis, and so on. It is not so much about the fat, it is about the level of sugar. And let me just give you a little background on that if you're not aware. I have lived through the low sugar, the low fat revolution. If you are anywhere close to my age, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My parents got hugely on the low fat. And the reason was about 40 years ago, there were a set of erroneous fraudulent studies that were released that misrepresented data that indicated that it was that was indicating that it was fat that was so heavily contributing to the incidence of heart disease. Specifically, it was cholesterol, and not so much that it was sugar. In fact, it was sugar. Sugar is the thing that is most leading to this. It is the thing that is most contributing to our high incidences of heart disease and so on. And it's something to be super, super aware of. And one of the biggest changes that I will definitely educate people about and lead people through when they're at least on the 40-day sugar detox is to how to increase in a healthy way the very, very, very healthy fats that are in our diet that are going to support your body in the way that they're meant to. So fructose is an issue. If you ignore fructose and if you ignore the amount of fruit that you're having and you just consume at the level that you want every day, you are going to find that it becomes very, very difficult for you to decrease your overall sugar load. It will be difficult for you to keep the levels under 40 for adults and under 20 for children. And you will definitely not get the results you're looking for. So it's important. You're going to eat fruit. You're just going to be mindful of what you're eating, and there's really no reason where you should be having unsweetened apple juice or orange juice or anything like that. Take it out of the diet, drink the water, okay? Number 4, most prevalent place where we get hidden sugars are grains. So there are other reasons. One of the books that I recommend a lot of people read is called Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. There are other health implications associated with grains. One of the other things that happens is even though you can look on the side of some breads and some pastas and so on, it will say no sugar. This is a case where these foods break down into sugar in your body in fast order. So how about we do this? I'm going to continue on. I don't actually know where you lost me, but it did probably tape for a while. And try refreshing it. And hello, can you see and hear you? Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to assume you can hear me, but otherwise you're going to get it in your inbox anyways. All right. So I don't know where you guys all clicked out of the conversation, but I was talking about granola bars. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up, and then we're going to move on to other things. So let's see. Let me just show you this. It's my last example of grains, okay? So this is a Naked Berry Delight bar. It's a raw fruit and nut bar. Everything on here I can pronounce and I can see. So these are things like dates, cashews, raisins, raspberries. For all intents and purposes, from the perspective that this is a whole food, fantastic. But when you start looking at the sugar content, this is where this one goes downhill. So this little tiny bar, which by the way, I would be starving if I ever ate. Like I wish I could really give you an indication of how tiny it is. This little bar is 16 grams of sugar. So the kids would definitely find this to be a huge issue, and they would probably be pretty hungry after. And the bigger thing with that is that we can make better choices around this so that they are becoming satiated, that they're getting the nutrition they require, but they're not overflooding their liver and their system with sugar. Okay? All right. So I'm sure you can guess the number 5 place that is most common where you get sugars. And I guess this would not be a hidden sugar, I think, because it's confectionaries. These are the obvious things to people. You know, you get the beverages out of the way, you get the condiments and the sauces, you become aware of your fruits and you make better choices around that. You really start to limit the amount of overall grain load on your system, and you drop down the confectionaries. You know, when I say confectionaries, I mean the things that are obvious, the candies and the cookies and the things that probably should be most reserved for special occasions and truly, I don't really like the word treats, but I guess if you're going to say anything, you would say treats. And instead of those being the things that you go to on a daily basis, and I know why you're going to them, not all of you, but a lot of you, it's because you crave them. You crave them so much because your body has that addiction that we've been talking about for so long, okay? So number 3, how do you also become aware of the hidden sugars in your diet? Well, you create the right environment, first of all. You can significantly drop what you're eating just alone by prepping your food. That is probably the number 1 thing. And I know people hate to hear that because they're trying to figure out how do I get from A to B without picking up a knife and visiting a cutting board and do all of those things. But that is really the key to be able to controlling the environment of what you consume. You know, good nutrition doesn't happen by accident. Prepping and planning is huge. It doesn't have to be complicated. But the biggest thing for a lot of people, well, there's 2 segments of the population. There are people who really, really, really enjoy, making foods and so on, and perhaps they're not getting the results because they just weren't aware of some of the strategies, or they really weren't aware of where they were getting hidden sources of sugar. For these people, as they apply the principles and they're already used to cooking, this is going to be a lot easier for them. And then there is a segment of the population that I've come to know that are really finding it more difficult in that they are not really keen on picking up cooking. So I'm not saying that you need to become a chef. I'm not saying that you have to create elaborate meals. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But one of the best ways that you can decrease your sugar intake is to control the ingredients of what you put into your food. So that needs to become a priority on some level. Prepping and planning, having the right foods around you, and more importantly, getting the foods out of there. So if you want to get rid of sugar in your diet and significantly decrease it down, don't have sugar around, because your you will at some point, you are going to succumb to your desires, and you are going to be jonesing for it, especially maybe at the beginning, and you are going to tear into whatever it is that you strategically placed at the back of your cabinets. So my advice to you would be, clear it out, get it out. If you have to do what I've done, which is, put things in Rubbermaids and just got them out of there, donate them, give them to somebody else. I hate to say that, because I hate that anybody has so much sugar, but just having them around is going to definitely increase your desire for them. So just get them out of the way. Making food is absolutely foundational to the changes that you're looking for. But more importantly, and this is one of the things that excites me the most about people who truly do the detox, is that they start to create a healthy relationship with food. So many of us have negative feelings around food. It has not brought us joy. It has not necessarily made us feel that they want to feel in the long term, maybe in the short term, but not in the long term. So, creating a relationship with food that's healthy, learning how to prepare simple meals that are satisfying. When you stop eating so much sugar, you start to change your palate for sugar. You will start to find that very small amounts of sugar are actually quite sweet, and it becomes much, much easier to let sugar go. It doesn't mean you never have sugar. It just means you don't have these massive quantities of sugar that so many of us in our population are having. So when you have the correct strategy, you have the correct results. When you know how you want to prep and how you want to plan, this all becomes easier, and that's a big part of it. So initially, for a lot of people, this becomes almost like learning a new language. If you've never picked up ingredient labels, if you've not looked at nutrition fact sheets, if you didn't even know how to calculate that 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar, just having some of these basic knowledge blocks is going to make a big difference when you are, choosing and selecting things. But go easy on yourself. It isn't necessarily going to happen all in one day. It doesn't mean, you're going to sidestep, you're going to backstep sometimes, but it's that about moving forward. It's not about being perfect. It's about having progress. And initially when you start, it's trying to create a level of conscious competence. You have to consciously think about it. It's kind of like when you first learned to drive a car, you had your hands at 10 and 2 and you focused on everything and the radio was turned down and you were like, where am I going? What am I doing? And I'm going to turn the corner. And I'm going to put the indicator on and, now I'm going to touch the brakes. Do you remember that? It was like you had to create so much conscious competence around it. And now when you drive the car, oh, I hope you're not texting, but you're probably listening to music and you're gabbing and you're just unconsciously going through all the motions that get you from A to B. And that's because you created a level of unconscious competence around it. It's all those steps between conscious competence and unconscious competence that are your habits and rituals. And those are the things that come from picking up a label and learning, and then, applying recipes and, making sure that you, on some level, meal plan to some degree, taking snacks with you when you travel, doing all sorts of strategies that help you manage what you're putting into your body. That's where you create that unconscious competence, and that's where you get long-term success with this. So at the beginning, of course, this is going to take some level of effort and energy, but as you start to get positive results, as you start to feel yourself change, as you start to see your metabolism change, as you start seeing your immune system go up, when you start to feel better, when you have less joint pain, you're going to be more motivated to continue on this pathway. That is my experience. Okay? Planning and prepping. That's what's so key. There are a lot of strategies that you can use around cooking. My biggest one for people is whatever you make for dinner becomes your lunch tomorrow. So, instead of starting every single meal from scratch every single time you eat, start to think about creating more food at each time that you cook so that those foods can be multi-purposed either into the next meal or you can have leftovers. Lunchtime, that's the time when a lot of people have a lot of snack food. If they're not prepping and planning properly, that's when their sugar levels start to go up. They start to take drink boxes and they start to, have those kinds of things. If you get into the habit of making enough whole food for dinner, putting it in a container that you can take with you the next day to work or pull out of your fridge at lunchtime and quickly heat up, or it's something that you can eat cold, that is going to be one of your biggest strategies for decreasing sugar. The other part of it is learning how to pull food forward. So in other words, if I was making a pan of roasted vegetables for tonight to go with my dinner, why not make 2 pans of roasted vegetables so that I can take some of those vegetables tomorrow, I can saute them in a pan really quickly with a fried egg, and I have an absolutely zero sugar, meal. Or I use those very same roasted vegetables that I'm putting on a bed of lettuce together with some, cut up leftover chicken from the night before and some homemade salad dressing. And there I have a really, really great low or perhaps even no sugar lunch. That's how you start to create success. The prepping and the planning, and there's some strategizing there. And those are things that I can help you with. But that idea is what gets you forward. And that's how you get out of stopping in to buy this food and rushing over here to buy that food and going through the drive-through window. Because those foods made by manufacturers, they put sugar in things on purpose. When things started to become low fat many, many decades ago, food became very unsatisfying. And food manufacturers knew that if they increased the sugar content in that you would find it more satisfying, and you certainly would find it more addictive, and you would go back for more. So just staying out of the drive-through window and things like that, making a massive change in all of this. Okay? If all else fails, this is like bottom of the line, you're out somewhere, you don't know what to have, or you don't know what to have for dinner, stick to the plan. Veggies, clean protein, and healthy fat. Those things alone will take you all the way out of the high sugar realm. So when I say healthy fat, people get nervous, especially in the detox and especially in my office, because I am often touting healthy fat, healthy fat, healthy fat. I'm not talking trans fat. I'm not talking partially hydrogenated fats. Those are the fats, those man-made fats, those unstable vegetable fats that get heated that you want to stay away from. You definitely do. Those are in processed foods. What you want to fill yourself up with is healthy fats, the kind of fats that your brain is going to love you for, that's going to ward off dementia and coat your spinal nerves with that thick, healthy myelin sheath that allows your nervous system to be healthy. It is going to support your immunity. It is going to help create and sustain the proper hormones in your body. Fat is what you need, okay? Healthy fat. I'm not talking about deep fried French fries. So fats are very, very satisfying. And together with protein, they very much help stabilize your blood sugar, which is what you want. So that's one of the ways that you decrease cravings. You decrease cravings by decreasing the amount of sugar in your diet, and then at the very same time, increasing moderate amounts of healthy fats in your diet to help your body ward that off. So what are healthy fats? Things like avocados, omega-3 fatty acids, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, ghee, which is clarified butter, avocado oil, unheated extra virgin olive oil, and so on. Those are the kinds of fats that your hair is going to soak up, your skin's going to soak up. I just can't say enough. It is going to be the key to any healthy eating plan. And when you see people that have problems with, testosterone and things like that, when you see people who have issues with memory, these are the kinds of things you want to be adding into their diet, and you want to be at the very same time decreasing all of those sugars that we talked about. One of the things that is going to help you tremendously when you start to decrease the sugar in your diet is to not immediately think about cutting calories, especially if you feel like you're going from a higher level of sugar in your diet and you're trying to decrease it down and you know that you crave sugar. This is not the time to decide you're going to cut the calorie content in your diet. This is the time when you want to make sure that you are getting those right amounts of protein, that you are putting protein in your diet and many of your meals, that you're increasing that level of healthy fat so that your body stays stable, that your blood sugar stays stable, and your cravings decrease. The second thing to decrease your cravings, of course, is going to make sure that you're hydrated. Filtered, healthy, reverse osmosis, or in some way filtered, properly filtered water, I shall say, is something that you should be drinking in abundance. Most of you out there should be drinking between at least 2 and 3 liters a day, or if you are use imperial system, half your body weight, half your body weight in pounds in ounces. So if you're 100 pounds, you want to be drinking 50 ounces of water and so on. So 2 to 3 liters is about in the neighborhood of what you should be thinking about. Okay? That's my biggest thing on that. That's going to help you stabilize your sugar levels, and also it's going to ward off cravings. Last thing, when you are converting to a low sugar ongoing lifestyle, you have to figure out ways to be able to live life. And when I say live life, I can tell you I'm a huge traveler. I love to eat out, and I love entertaining. So traveling, entertaining, eating out, you can do it. You just have to do it with clarity and knowing what you're doing. These days, it is totally and perfectly okay to call a restaurant or to call ahead and find out what's on the menu. You can certainly go online and you can, see what kind of food choices are in a restaurant. If this is something you're serious about, you can't just do it haphazardly. You can't go into McDonald's and go, okay, now I'm going to eat low sugar. Or you can't go into Dairy Queen and say the same thing. Those restaurants are not set up for that. That's not the way those foods are created, and they're not going to have that positive response that most of you are looking for. So, it's good for you to go online so that when you are deciding that you're going to eat out one evening, you're actually giving yourself a fighting chance. Set yourself up for success right from the beginning, and by doing so, you do it with a level of knowledge and a level of consciousness. I go online and I look at menus all the time before I arrive at a restaurant. When you get to the restaurant and you see something that you want to consume, don't always look for the salads. The salads are often very, very high in sugar. You have no idea how they made the salad dressing. I guarantee they're sweet and delicious. They probably have quite a bit of sugar in it. They may have dried fruit in this end. There's some of those crunchy noodles, you name it. There's oftentimes those candied pecans that are just oh so delicious. Before you know it, you're consuming 30, 40, 50 grams of sugar in your salad, and here you were trying to make a good choice. The things I lean towards, the things I recommend most people lean towards, are away from the grains. Ask them to not even bring that little plate of fresh bread, and instead go towards the grilled, the braised, the sauteed protein of some sort. So whether it's wild fish or, some sort of red meat or poultry or whatnot, and go ahead and get some vegetables with it and enjoy yourself. So, if I notice that the entree that I'm ordering does not have the kind of side that I'm looking for, I look on the other ones that are the other entrees that are on the menu, and I ask them to swap. Do I look like, you can do it with a smile. They're very, very used to it. Nowadays, people are gluten-free and whatever. And I mean, we all have demands. So restaurants are used to accommodating you. So ask for what you want and you will definitely get it. Okay. So if you go to the party, if you are entertaining, but if you go to the party, you want to be the one that brings something healthy that you can eat, whether it's a veggie food tray. And by the way, going low sugar doesn't mean all you eat is vegetables all the time, right? That's a transition that I can teach you over time. It's probably not within the parameters of a 1-hour webinar, but it doesn't mean that's all you eat. But why not be the person that brings the big, big, giant vegetable tray? Maybe bring the chicken skewers or the bacon wrapped something else. You can eat those things, especially when you source them properly. It's just be careful of the dips, be careful of where the sugar comes into the whole program. And traveling, I do it all the time. I bring food with me every time I go. The biggest limiting resource, if we're talking about travel in the form of airplanes, of course, is going to be the fluids. So I easily can make a salad. Then just as I'm going through security, you can put the salad dressing over the salad, or if you take less than 100 fluid ounces, you're not going to have an issue with it. I bring all sorts of cut up vegetables. I bring healthy protein bars. Sometimes I'll bring beef jerky that has been appropriately created. In other words, isn't full of nitrites and MSGs and so on, and also doesn't have any sugar because I didn't get the teriyaki one. That's the way you do it. You just prep and prepare. You have a snack bag in your car. You have foods in your purse. You think ahead. That is one of the easiest ways for you to be able to consciously cut out a lot of the sugars that so many of us are worried about, the ones that we're consuming in vast amounts. All right? So those are my five top tips. Those are the ways that, you over time as a process are going to be able to decrease the amount that you're consuming, and you are going to start to see results. Okay? If you have more questions, definitely list them on the side, and I will go to the open public Facebook page, 40-day online sugar detox on Facebook, and answer them. I'm now going to give you a little bit of background about my upcoming 40-day online sugar program. So for future, if you want to know my upcoming detoxes, you can go on drlaurafoster.com. The one that I have coming at the time of this webinar is for January 25th. So next Wednesday, we are starting our next online sugar detox. We have a giant group of super pumped up people. I think some of them are scared, but don't worry, it's going to go well. You're going to have, think of it this way. So this is how we break it down. It's 40 days. I am not interested in bringing you through a detox that returns you to your lifestyle when you're done. So rest assured, this is a detox that moves into an online or ongoing level of lifestyle. So 21 days, think of the 21 days as the sugar detox, where we're very consciously creating these habits when we go from that conscious competence to that unconscious competence. These are the times when we're going to get on our weekly webinars and we're going to talk strategies. I'm going to talk about, not just myself, but also other guest experts who are going to share their successes and the types of things that got them success, in hopes that that's going to help influence you and help you strategize your way through the first. You get a 60+ page printed booklet that is full of menus and recipes, information in much greater detail than I've talked about here. You're also going to get it in digital format, and it's going to allow you to follow along with the web, with not only the recipes, but so on. There's also a meal plan in there. 4 live webinars, but we also have twice weekly emails from myself that you're going to get extra content, extra recipes, product reviews, and so on. And lastly, and probably in some ways most importantly, there's also a private Facebook page. That private Facebook page has become the glue that has held this group together. I, had really no idea what to expect when I created one. The sense of community that goes on when a group of people with a similar interest and a similar intention come together is massive. So if you're looking for extra support, extra content always comes down only because the questions get asked and the questions get answered. So all of that is $199 Canadian. And if you are wanting to join at the early bird rate ends tomorrow, January 20th, and it's $169. My parting comments. This program, it's doable. It's completely attainable. It is not about being perfect. It is about creating progress. And it is about making small strategic steps that you apply day after day after day for yourself and for your family that are going to start to shift and change and recreate your level of health and vitality and rejuvenation. This is meant to be a game changer, and it absolutely is for many, many, many of the participants that have taken this program up till now. So you're welcome to message me with any questions. Keep in mind that the rate goes up tomorrow evening, but for now it's $169. And if you want to message me, go ahead and go on our online Facebook page or message me through my website. And that's it. I hope you'll join me. I hope that you got great nuggets of information tonight. And I appreciate you spending your evening with me. All right. Have a nice evening.